You were still able to have that like graduation experience and prom and things like that, or did you have to skip that?
I had to skip that. So
Really?
yeah. So like even like today, like my
Yeah.
school back in the US is having their like commencement ceremony.
Yeah.
So all of my friends are actually graduating today, which is a weird feeling seeing everybody like walk the stage that I should have been walking with them, but
Right.
I'm here, so it's better. I might be a little homesick because all my friends are doing this, but ultimately I'm having the best time of my life here.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Life Exchange Stories of Understanding. I'm your host, Kelsey Ross, and today we've got a great guest with us. Why don't you tell us about yourself and introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Abby. I'm 18 years old and I'm originally from the Indianapolis area in Indiana, and I live in Germany as an exchange student in the Thüringen Bundesland.
Welcome, a fellow Midwesterner. So take me through what made you decide that you wanted to be an exchange student in high school?
Yeah, so my school in the US hosts a lot of exchange students. And when I was a freshman and when I was a sophomore, I had a lot of them in my classes, and I really enjoyed getting to hear them talk about why they came to the US. And it just kind of inspired me to pursue an exchange journey as a high schooler.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. We have some high schools in the country that definitely do not accept exchange students, but the ones that do, it seems like really impactful for not just the host family, but for the entire school community as well. So it's great that your school is so accepting of these students. And if I recall correctly, you are a part of a very prestigious scholarship program.
Yes, so I'm a Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange student,
Mhm.
which is a joint partnership between the US and Germany. So yeah, it's like they send over students from Germany to the US and we get sent over to Germany as kind of a little partnership.
That's so cool. So how did you first find out about this scholarship?
I think I, when I wanted to get into exchanging, I didn't really know
Mhm.
where to start. So I think I just Googled
Mhm.
exchange students for high schoolers, and then a government website popped up and it had CBYX, Flex, Yes, and Silly,
Mhm.
and all of those. And I was like, oh, Germany sounds cool. And so then I applied for it.
That's awesome. Did you know any German before you applied for this?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I took
Really?
French in high school, so German was a little
Wha-
jump up for me. Yeah.
Okay. I'm surprised you didn't go with France then with the added language experience. What made you choose Germany over any other country?
I really liked the political involvement, so I really liked that we got to go visit the Bundestag and got to have that more political and diplomatic approach to the program.
Yeah,
And then there's just so much that Germany can offer. There's a lot of different diverse aspects, a lot of history, there's a lot of culture here that I really just wanted to experience.
absolutely makes sense. That's great. So what was the application process like for the CBYX scholarship?
It was pretty similar to like applying for a college. You know, you have like your personal information and then you have like essays and you have to get like letters of recommendation from a bunch of different people. So it was pretty similar to like applying for a college or something like that.
Gotcha. Pretty straightforward then. That's great. So you had mentioned you're 18, so I assume you are a senior in high school or you were just finishing up your senior year, correct?
Just finishing up my senior year, yes.
Okay, so were you still with you finishing up, you were still able to have that like graduation experience and prom and things like that, or did you have to skip that?
I had to skip that. So
Really?
yeah. So like even like today, like my
Yeah.
school back in the US is having their like commencement ceremony.
Yeah.
So all of my friends are actually graduating today, which is a weird feeling seeing everybody like walk the stage that I should have been walking with them, but
Right.
I'm here, so it's better.
That's fair. Why wait until the senior year and not get to experience these traditions with your high school classmates?
So I found the scholarship program like end of freshman year, and then I was like, oh, I'll apply sophomore year for my junior year. But then I got halfway through the application and thought to myself that I didn't feel ready necessarily to go live away as a
Yeah.
junior. And you know, your junior year is so important academically because that's when you truly start to set yourself up for college, that I felt like I needed to be there for my junior year instead of my senior year.
That makes
And
sense.
then going into my senior year, I was like, okay, this is great. And when I thought about it towards the beginning of the year, all of this senior stuff didn't really like necessarily matter to me. Like it
Mhm.
didn't necessarily matter if I walked in the commencement ceremony or if I went to prom again. So, but now that it's here, it's kind of still a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah. That bittersweet feeling, I'd imagine, is pretty common among our American exchange students who go overseas. And
Mhm.
that's understandable. How do you find yourself getting through those moments where you're feeling a little down about that?
Whenever I feel a little sad, normally I either go out and experience what I'm here to do and kind of just remind myself why I'm here and that yes, I did choose this for a reason and that yes, I might be a little homesick because all my friends are doing this, but ultimately I'm having the best time of my life here. So I just need to remember to be grateful that I'm here and experiencing all these cool things.
That's great. Really great mindset that you've got. It sounds like being on exchange really changes your mindset in a bit. Have you had any changes with how you approach life or challenges since being on exchange?
Yeah, I've learned to ask for help a lot more, which is really weird because like towards the beginning of the year I didn't know much German, so it was like a little harder for me to ask for help. But even in the US, I was a very like independent person. Like I can do everything by myself. I don't need help from other people. But being on exchange has kind of made me realize that I can't do anything by myself. Or not anything, but I can't do everything by myself. So it's like I have to take a step back and let somebody else help me so that I can get my end goal that I'm hoping for.
That's great. And going back to learning German, so how did you prepare? How did you learn German before you came on program?
So with the CBYX program, we have a month-long language camp in August.
Mhm.
So I kind of just leaned a little heavy into that.
Yeah.
So I did Duolingo before I left, obviously. And
Hmm.
then I took the A1 level class when I got to language camp. And that kind of set me up for success. And then after language camp, once I went to my host family, I started a more intense and longer language class at they call it the Volksschule here. So it's like the adult learning center. Um,
Gotcha. Tell me about this language camp. Is it just strictly doing nothing but learning German?
so they split our days into half. So a half
Mhm.
of our day was language camp. So 8 to noon was language courses. And then in the second half of the day, they're almost like camp counselors, but we called them our teamers. Our teamers had instructional time to talk about different culture shocks we might experience or different ways to handle situations. And we had sessions on like communication and privilege and just kind of trying to outline how to make our exchange year the best year that we could.
Really in depth. That's great. Sounds like they really tried to prepare you as best as they could for some of the things that you might experience while you're on program.
Yeah.
So, how did you feel when you found out you won this scholarship?
It was really surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I was sitting on the couch, like playing on it was after school, and my mom came downstairs and she looked at me and she was like, "Have you read your email recently?" And I was like, "No, because I'm a teenager and never look at my email." So she was like, "Well, look at your email." And I was like, "Okay." So I did, and the first email on it was like your CBYX acceptance, and I was like, "This is actually happening." So it was just really surreal that like this was actually gonna be a thing that I was gonna do.
I can't imagine your feeling. How was your mom and your family when you had mentioned and decided that this is what you wanted to do and you wanted to go on exchange? Were they supportive?
It took a while for them to be supportive.
Hmm.
So I applied for the program and I didn't necessarily tell them what I was applying for. I just said, "Hey, and they got the email after I had submitted my application saying, "Thank you for submitting your application." And they were like, "Hey, what is this?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's just this thing I applied for. I didn't even know if I'm going to get it." And they were like, "Oh, okay." And then got the email that I was a semifinalist, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Okay, we actually have to like get serious about this decision now." So I
Yeah.
made them a PowerPoint presentation with all the pros and the cons and the benefits of an exchange year and then like living in Germany. And then I
Yeah.
like presented that to them like a business pitch. And then I eventually got them on board. So
Okay, interesting way of doing that. So I think the
yeah.
second time we've heard now that somebody has done a presentation for their parents to get them on board with this. Very
Hmm.
professional adult way of thinking about all of this,
Hmm.
and specifically as you mentioned, a business pitch. Would you say you're business minded? Is that something you consider for your future?
Kind of. I'm going to school in the fall for hospitality management. So
Nice.
kind of, yeah. I like being professional. I like giving presentations. I like being in front of a crowd. I like being in charge. So
Perfect.
yeah, I figured I'd
Totally
say
makes
business minded.
sense.
Yeah,
And so did you find out that you had your host family before you got to go to Germany?
I did. Yes. I
What was
actually
that
got them
like?
towards the beginning of May.
Awesome.
And at that point, we had been in a group chat with everybody who was going to Germany. So we had this big Instagram group, and somebody was actually keeping track of like when you were taken off of the YFU Deutschland website. And
Mm-hmm.
then, so that means you might get your host family information soon. So
Yep.
had gotten a DM from a girl, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Hey, you just got taken off the website." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I kept
Mm-hmm.
refreshing my email like every day, multiple times a day, waiting for this email. And then like, it was like Friday at 6 p.m. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, your host family is here. And that was also really cool because
Yeah.
that means I could finally like put where I am living within the big spectrum of Germany and
Mm-hmm.
actually start making in country connections, which was really, really cool.
That's great. I assume you had a little bit of contact with your host family before you came on program. So what was it like getting to know them before going to live with these essentially strangers for a whole year?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of like, not stalking, but like, I looked at my host mom's Instagram a lot to like kind of see what they liked and what they didn't like and like just to see kind of their vibe without having to directly text and be like, hey, what's your vibe?
Yeah.
But we did a lot of texting and I texted them about like what I want to do when I'm here. And so they kind of helped me find clubs and activities that I could do while I was here, which was really helpful. And then if they posted something on their Instagram story or I did the same thing that kind of piqued our interest, we would interact with that. So just little things like that.
I love getting to hear a bit more about like the dynamics with the host families and the exchange students because it can be a bit worrying for some of our students, just like
Yeah.
what to expect and how do I make a relationship with these people. So getting to know them and talking to them was some of your tips. What are some other tips for students who may be going on programs that you have to try to make that connection with their host family?
Definitely like talk to them regularly. Like definitely try to
Mm-hmm.
make an effort to talk to them regularly because you won't know them unless you talk to them. And when you're talking, don't try to do like definitely try to get to know them, yes, but try to have a little bit of a deeper level conversation. Like what do you expect of me as an exchange student? Like even having those conversations over text
Mm-hmm.
before you get there so you can kind of set yourself up and to be the best exchange student you can for them is really, really helpful.
Makes sense. That's great advice for them. Thank you for that. So, Tate, let's go back to the moment you're getting on that plane, you land in Germany. What is your first impression?
It was actually not that surprising because I feel like Germany and the US, especially in like in the Midwest where we live,
Mhm.
is pretty similar.
Yeah.
So I really didn't get much of like a culture shock. I got culture shock obviously, but I didn't like get, when I looked around, it didn't look different,
Okay.
which was interesting because I definitely expected a bigger like initial reaction rather than like a little reaction that kind of like spiraled a little longer than I thought it would. So yeah,
That's good. And talking about the culture shock, when you would find yourself in these moments with culture shock, how did you handle that?
never negatively. I always heard never handle culture shock negatively because then that
Hmm.
affects your view of the country and everything. So I was really careful when I had these moments of, oh, this is kind of weird, to kind of rewire weird to just mean different.
Yeah.
So whenever I saw something that was out of the ordinary, I was just like, oh, that's just different. That's not weird.
Hmm.
Um, and just kind of filed that into my Germany is really cool section. So try not to be as harsh about it.
Yeah. It's a very open-minded approach that you took with culture shock because it's a lot getting thrown at you all at once, especially not having
Mm-hmm.
the language experience,
Mm-hmm.
new language, new people, new cultures. It's all so brand new. It can be very overwhelming. It's great to you had that mindset to lean back on to keep you grounded. So going back to your host family, when you finally got to meet them in person, what was that like?
It was really like I use the word surreal a lot, but it was really surreal because
Yeah.
I've like seen pictures of them and I've talked to
Hmm.
them over text, but I've never met them in person. So just seeing them in person kind of really solidified that like, oh, I'm here. This is real. I'm living with these people for the next 10 months. And it was really cool to like meet them in person and to like see their like in-person dynamics over their like texting dynamics. So, because that's so different from person to person. And it was really nice to get to like learn their quirks and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite thing about your host family?
They're really energetic people. They're also really young. So my host
Hmm.
parents are both 40.
Okay.
And my parents back at home are on the older side. So
Mhm.
it's a really energetic dynamic. They like to go a lot of places and they like to do a lot of things, which
Yeah.
is a lot different than my dynamic back at home. So it's really fun to like do things with them because they're so energetic and so involved in their community.
That's cool. What sort of things do you get up to? What do you do with them?
We go to a lot of like festivals. Like where I live, we have a lot of like festivals.
Mhm.
They're the weird festivals too. Like we went to an onion festival a couple weeks ago.
Interesting. Okay. So is it like a lot of like onion dishes or like
They
what's
had
going on with
like
this onion festival?
they had like dolls that like, but they're onions, but they like dress, they like put wigs and like they draw face. It's weird. It's
Work.
different, not
Okay.
weird,
Yes,
but they like
different.
dress them up. Different, not weird.
Cool.
Yeah, and they have like faces. It's weird. It's fun.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I mean, where we're nearby here, we have a potato festival, which
Right,
is
yes.
not. I mean, they're not dressing up potatoes, but dressing up onions. I kind of love that. Is it like all kinds of
It's
onions, or
really,
just like a certain
yeah.
type?
They were all kind. They were all different sizes. Like they had some little ones and they had some big ones, and they kind of like snowmaned them. So there was like a big one and then a middle one and then a small. It was a lot of fun.
I love that. What are some of the other festivals that you got to enjoy?
There's a like Christmas markets, obviously, and then they're involved in this historical society. So there was this parade we went to back in the fall where
Hmm.
everybody was dressed in like traditional, like Renaissance periody type dresses.
Ooh.
And that was
Hmm.
really, really fun and cool. And then they're also on this committee that selects the Rosen Queen, as it's called. So like the Rose Queen.
Yeah.
And she's this girl who goes around to every single festival as this like person.
Yeah.
And just that's also a big festival that
Mhm.
I'm unfortunately not here for,
Yeah.
but it's also really cool. I've heard.
That sounds really fun. On the, yeah, I wouldn't say less fun side of things, but on the more like academic side, what were some differences that you noticed from your school in Germany versus your school in the United States?
I take a lot more classes, first of
Really?
all. So I
Okay.
have like the same amount of time in school basically. So I'm there 8 to 2 and
Yeah.
I take 6 classes a day, but
Okay.
I'm taking 15 total subjects instead of the usual like 7 that I'm used to.
Yeah.
Because at my school, they learn things cumulatively. So every year they take physics and every year they take chemistry.
Gotcha.
So I have like biology and I have chemistry and I have ethics and English and French and German and all of
Mhm.
these classes. And it's a lot.
It sounds very intensive. Sounds like a really comprehensive education for sure.
Hmm.
And how
Yes.
was it that getting involved and getting incorporated with your classmates and getting to know some of them?
It was really kind of difficult at first, especially
Hmm.
because like my German wasn't the best.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple people in my class who didn't really know English, so we couldn't really converse.
Yeah.
But there were a couple people who were really nice and who knew enough English that we could have a good conversation.
Yeah.
And then there's also a lot of immigrants in my class because I am in East Germany technically.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's a couple Ukrainians and there's a couple people from like Georgia and Turkey in my class who kind of experiencing the same things that I am, and that they're in a new place and they don't really know anybody and they also don't know the language. So we just kind of bonded over that too. So it was nice to make friends with those people. But yeah,
That's great. Very diverse community in
very,
your
very diverse.
schooling.
Yes.
That's awesome. For somebody in your experience, in your situation where they may not have a full grasp of the language and the country that they're in, what advice do you have for an exchange student who's trying to make friends with their classmates?
Definitely be persistent with like making friends. I wasn't really getting invited places, so like kind of had to force myself into their circle. And then they wouldn't necessarily think of me when making plans.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to force myself into that. And then I also made one friend and then just kind of enveloped myself into her friend group. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is cool. This is chill.
Great.
So, but yeah,
Be persistent. That's
yeah.
good. We got to make sure we're writing that down. What sort of things after school are you doing with your friends and your friend groups that you've made?
Back in the US, I danced a lot. I was like a
Hmm.
dancer for 15 years. So I really wanted to continue doing that here. So I went to a couple studios in my area and didn't really find anything I liked. And then one of my friends in my class was like, hey, I dance here. Come with me one week. So
Hmm.
I go now with her every Thursday and I take a hip hop class. And then every Monday I take a ballet class with old ladies and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
then I'll like hang out with friends after school. We'll go get coffee and like do our homework together, or we'll go to other cities on the weekends, just stuff like that.
Perfect. And the area of Germany that you're in, is it more like a city or is it more rural?
It's a city. It's
Okay.
a city in the middle of nowhere, but it's a city. Like
Fun.
there's
Okay.
120,000 people who live there, so
Wow.
it's pretty
Okay.
decent sized.
Yeah. So the school that you're in are the class sizes, are they like smaller or is it quite a big school that you're in then?
My school is pretty small. Like our school is pretty big because we have 5th through 13th grade. So it's all of the grades in the same building. But my class only has 15 or so people in it.
Wow. Okay. Pretty, you get to,
Pretty
and
small class.
yeah, it is. Is that similar to your experience in the United States then as well?
Not really. Normally my
No?
classes had like 25 people in them or so. So it's a
Okay.
lot smaller here.
Yeah. Okay. And I had heard in other countries, I'm not sure if it's the same in Germany, that instead of you going to different classes, your teachers go to your classrooms and they're the ones that change. Is that how it is in Germany too?
It is, but
Okay.
that's more for like younger classes. Like the younger classes don't
Yeah.
move rooms at all, but we move teachers and we move rooms at the same time. So it's like
Gotcha.
simultaneously happening at the same time. But my
Okay.
class itself, like the people in my class are the same. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Get to spend a lot of time with them, get to really get to know these
Yep, every
people.
day. Yep.
Awesome. So on the less school side of things, you got to experience a lot of different holidays and different traditions while you're in
Mm-hmm.
Germany, I assume. So what
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Yeah.
things like that did you get to experience and try out?
Yeah, so my host family is really big about me embracing German culture. So we went to Oktoberfest.
Okay.
We went to a lot of Christmas markets around here. And then we went to a couple Faschings, which is the carnival. Sorry. It's different words
Gotcha.
regionally. So carnival
Okay.
is really cool too.
Yeah.
So really all of the
Different,
big German festivals.
yeah. Different words regionally?
Yeah, so in Eastern and Southern Germany, they call
Mm-hmm.
it Fasching.
Mm-hmm.
And then they only call it Carnival in like the Cologne region and then like up there in that area of Germany for some reason.
Interesting.
It's weird.
It's yeah. Is that something that's common, like where the different regions of Germany will have different words for the same thing? Is that a common thing in your
Yeah, it is.
experience?
It's
Really?
yeah. So like they have like the jelly filled donut and
Yeah.
everywhere they call it a the Berliner, but they
Yes.
call it a Krapfen in Bayern, and then in Berlin they call it a Pfannkuchen.
Hey.
So which is
Huh.
pancake, but
Interesting. Okay. I
the
didn't
German
know
language
that.
never ceases to surprise me.
Yeah. What's been the most surprising thing about the German language and the German culture for you?
Definitely grammar, because
Yeah.
German and English are in the same grammar family.
Yeah.
So, like, I think of a sentence in German, but I just end up translating it word for word from English. And then I say it out and I'm like, oh, this is right. And then my German friends look at me and they're like, what the heck did you just say? Because that didn't make sense at all. So that's weird. That's different. And then
Yeah.
also the different dialects of people
Mhm.
speaking. Cause like
Okay.
when you get, it's kind of like the same with accents kind of, but they have
Gotcha.
different like dialects. Like when you go to Bayern, they're speaking like Bayerisch, which is like deeper and it's harder to understand.
Mhm.
So just regional quirks like that make this language so much fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. It sounds like if you go to a different town in Germany or a different city, you're going to get an entirely different experience than where you're at.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And what would you say surprised you the most about German culture?
I don't want to talk about drinking, but yeah, like the drinking culture here, because
Okay.
it's so casual. Because like
Yeah.
people will just go out and they'll have like a drink on a patio with their friends, and then or like my host dad will get home from work and he'll have a beer, and that's just like, and they start drinking from such a young age. It's just so
Mhm.
normalized and so
Mhm.
casual here, which is something totally different than in the US.
Right. I gotcha. And I get the reticence not wanting to talk about drinking and things like that
Right,
while you're on
right,
program, because of course we have rules that we have to follow. But
right.
it is definitely something to consider and something that is very different that it probably
Mhm.
could be a bit of a culture shock for people coming over there. So what about some of the holidays that you got to experience? Were there any in Germany that you had never had the chance to experience in the United States?
Yeah, there's a couple actually.
Mhm.
See first, probably St. Nicholas is really fun. So the 6th of December,
Mhm.
German children put their shoes out, and then St. Nicholas comes and put like chocolate and fun stuff in their shoes, and
Aw.
then like leaves.
Yeah,
It's just kind of, it's like a Christmas warm up. It's really fun.
that's cool.
So that's really fun. And then like I don't remember what it's like, fillings something. So
Mhm.
coming up on June 8th, I think.
Mhm.
That's a big like Catholic holiday that we get off of school for, and remember what it is actually, but
It's okay.
it's a big deal apparently.
Gotcha.
I don't
Something
know.
to look
But
forward to.
yeah.
What were some differences between holidays that you've experienced in the America that you also got to experience in Germany?
Yeah. So I threw a Thanksgiving party for my host family as
Okay, what
kind
was
of
that
like a,
like?
hey, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Cause I gave like the list of things that I was going to make to my host family and I was like, hey, this is what we're going to have for Thanksgiving dinner. And they were
Yeah.
like, why so much? I was like, that's the fun of it. That's why Thanksgiving is so much fun. So I threw them a Thanksgiving party. We had the turkey, we had all of the stuffings and mac and cheese and cornbread and all the stuff. So
Mhm.
that was a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
then on the scale of difference, Christmas was a lot weirder here because they
Okay.
opened presents on the 24th.
Okay.
And like just with the whole Christmas market thing, it's a
Mhm.
lot more in your face Christmas.
Gotcha.
So this is
Yeah.
different.
Do they celebrate Halloween in Germany too?
It's less of a thing, but my
Okay.
host mom really, really loves it. Like she
Oh,
goes all out and decorates the houses and she like makes baskets of like candy for people who come and trick or treat. And she throws like this party for my host brother and my host sister's friends and my friends came over
yeah.
this year. And it was bigger than Halloween than I would have done in the US.
You mentioned your host brother and your host sister. Was this your first time having siblings in your family?
It was not my first time having
Okay.
siblings,
Yeah.
but it was my first time being the oldest sibling. And then it was my first
Okay.
time having a host, like having a sister. Like
Yeah.
in the US, I only had brothers. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a fun thing to adjust to, especially because she's in a time and place in her life where she like needs an older person in her life to kind of like be with her because she's a preteen. So like
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to kind of be that older sister that I would have wanted when I was her age. Yeah.
That's great. Get to be a mentor and an
Hmm.
ambassador for the
Yeah.
US. It's in all in one go. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
What would you say having these host siblings, what has that taught you about being a sibling to your brothers back home?
Yeah, so it kind of showed me that because I mean, they're my host siblings, so I can, but I can't necessarily get as mad at them as I would my actual brothers at home. So I guess it kind of just showed me to be gracious a little bit more when like little things happen because
Yeah.
it's not anybody's fault necessarily. So just kind of being gracious and nicer in situations like that.
Yeah. And throughout talking to you, you've mentioned your open-mindedness, you're trying to see the bright side in everyday situations that come up while you're on exchange. Were there any other challenges or obstacles that you had to overcome while you were on program?
Yeah, so back towards the beginning of January, my grandpa died.
Oh no,
So
I'm so sorry.
that was really hard because I couldn't be there to see him. My like parents were going through a lot with
Yeah.
him passing and then just being on the other side of the world from everything going on. It
Yeah.
was just a lot to deal with and it happened during like the point of every exchange year where they say it's going to get tough. So it just kind of made that beginning of January season be even more sucky. But
That is
yeah.
awful. I'm so sorry to hear that. That time that you're talking about, what is that for people who may not be familiar with it or maybe students who are getting ready to go on program?
Right. So whenever people talk about exchanges, they kind of give like a little mountain range, I guess is what I would call it.
Yeah.
And like when you start it, you're up here and you keep going up because you're in a new place and having a good time, but then eventually you drop because nothing can be great forever. And they said typically it's around that after Christmas time because that's when people start getting homesick
Yeah.
because holidays are different here. But then they said it does pick back up once you start settling in with your friends and
Mhm.
actually settling into German or whatever culture you're in, culture and stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
How did your host family and the friends that you made at school help you to get through these tougher periods and losing your grandfather?
My host family was really gracious. I was a little more closed off during that period of time, but they understood that like this is a really rough time, and they gave me a lot of grace, and they understood that like it's okay if I like stay in my room and like if I don't go out and hang out with my friends as much because I needed this time for myself, type of thing.
That's great. I'm so glad that you had them to support you through this
Yeah,
really
me too.
rough part of your life and that
Hmm.
you had people who cared so much. But maybe we could shift and get into some of the more fun stuff.
Yeah,
In Germany, do they do like a spring break or things like that, like we do here in the United States?
they do, but they do it later. Okay,
Okay,
because the semester break is in February. So we get
gotcha.
a week off in between the first semester and the second semester,
Mhm.
which means having another break in March would be weird. So we
Yeah.
have, they call it Easter break. So it's
Mhm.
like around Easter time. So mine was the week before and after Easter.
Yeah.
So I got 2 weeks off in April as Easter
Gotcha.
break.
Great. Did you get to travel during this time or at any point during your time abroad that to and get to see more of Germany or even more of Europe?
So for Osterferien, we went to Austria
Okay.
near Innsbruck and we went hiking and we saw like a bunch of really cool things because that's like the Alps. And so we did
Gotcha.
a lot of hiking, we did a lot of walking and like
Mhm.
sightseeing there. And then back in October for fall break, me, my host sister, and my host parents went camping for a week down near like Schloss Neuschwanstein, so the big iconic German castle.
Gotcha.
And then we went to like the Zugspitze, which is the highest mountain in Germany. And then we went to Oktoberfest. So just
Yeah.
that area down there was a lot of fun to vacation to. I've done a lot of weekend trips to go visit other friends I've made here. So I've been to Nuremberg and I've been up to Berlin and I've been up even further north than that. I've been up to Hamburg and I've been to Dresden. So yeah,
Been all over the place. Where's been
yeah,
your
I
favorite
have.
place to go so far?
That's a hard question. They
Right.
all have their benefits. My
Yeah.
favorite German city, I think, is Nuremberg.
Yeah.
It's like 3.5 hours away from me.
Mhm.
And I've been there a couple times. It's just the perfect size, and there's a lot of history with it because it's an old medieval town.
Ooh,
But they have a lot of other like aspects of it, and it's just a cool town to visit.
sounds like it.
And they have like the really big Christmas market that's really famous
Yeah.
that I got to go to, and it was really cool.
So you're coming up to the end of your exchange time. So
Right.
are you considered a senior over there in Germany as well?
No, I'm not. I'm a grade lower than what I would be in the
Okay,
US. So
gotcha.
I'm in the 11th class here instead.
One of the students that we had spoken to before had talked about the senior prank day. I can't remember the German word for it, but she had showed me some pictures of it, and it was really cool.
Hmm.
Is that something that it happened in your school or is going to happen in your school?
Yeah, it did happen a couple weeks
Okay.
ago. Yeah, I
Well,
also don't remember the name for it.
that's okay.
But yeah, and then like during breaks, they had like relay races outside where like the Abitur kids raced the teachers. And it was a lot of fun. It was definitely different than
Yeah.
definitely different than the US. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's still cool you got to experience that, even though it's not for your senior year experience.
Right.
But that's still awesome. So, are there any end of year school traditions that you will get to take part in coming up?
I I think so. My class has a class trip in a couple weeks. We're going camping overnight.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
So I'll do that like right before I leave. But my school year ends on the 26th, but I leave before my school is over. So there's a lot of stuff that last week of school that I'm going to miss, which
Yeah.
is whatever. But
Yeah. So, with the end of the year approaching too, I assume you're getting things ready and making plans to prepare to go back home. How are you planning? Are you planning on staying in contact with your host family and the friends that you've made there?
definitely for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, like both of my host siblings want to study in the US. So
Okay.
it'll be a question of when and where, and maybe I can go meet up with them
Yeah.
when they're in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely we'll come back to Germany though. So
That's great. And who knows, maybe your family can host one of your host siblings.
that's what I keep telling them. You just got to tell my parents to host. They have the space, they don't have the time. So
Fair enough. It's a big undertaking for some families,
yeah,
but from what I understand, it can be incredibly rewarding. I haven't hosted yet
hmm,
myself, but there are plans. But
yeah,
it can be incredibly rewarding and incredibly cool, especially that melding of culture, like you had talked about with sharing Thanksgiving
hmm,
with them and them taking you out and making you part of their family traditions as well.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So, what advice do you have for any student who may be considering going on exchange?
If you're thinking about it, definitely do it. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. But then also, don't go into it with expectations. I went into my exchange year with no expectations and then I was just blown away because I didn't have any expectations. So definitely don't think about it, just do it. Everything will fall into place. So just do it.
Perfect. Perfect. And what about for a family who may be considering hosting an exchange student? Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for them?
Definitely also do it. It's a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, just teenagers are a lot of fun to have. And especially if they're from a different culture, you can, I don't know, hang out with them and do all their cool things, and just be a cool family.
Have you ever thought about bringing the world into your home?
With YFU USA, hey, that's us. You can. By hosting an exchange student, you'll experience a new culture right in your own home.
It's an incredible opportunity to make lifelong connections and help a young student discover the American way of life.
Visit yfuusa.org to learn more about how you can become a host family today. For you in the future, I know you had said you're going to be going to school to study hospitality management. What other big plans do you have for your future?
Well, I'm going to school in the fall, obviously. I'll study hospitality management, like I said, and I'm also going to be minoring in applied linguistics with a concentration in TESOL. So that's teaching English to speakers of other languages.
Gotcha.
And after I finish college, I want to spend a couple years abroad teaching English to people who need it. So whether that be with the Peace Corps or whether that be with a different organization, just out there really getting into it and teaching English to people who need it.
Got big plans to achieve. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how would you say from being on exchange that your perception of the United States has changed?
I don't
Or has it
honestly
changed?
think it has. I don't think it really has.
Okay.
I think at least I already have a pretty critical view of the United States. Okay. So kind of being able to step away from it and see kind of just confirmed like what I was thinking. So just,
Okay. And that's another reason why we feel, especially here, that exchange is so important, because you do get to have a different perspective on the country you're in and the country you're from. And you get to work to be an ambassador to make things better.
Yeah.
That's great. And how would you say your perception of Germany has changed since living there for the school year?
There's a lot more to it than what people from the US would think.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they think Germany, they think Volkswagen, beer, and world wars. But there's a lot more to that. There's a lot of really cool people who live here. There's a lot of really cool things to see outside of the stereotypical German experience. They have a lot of castles, they have a lot of mountains, and they have a lot of hiking trails, and they have a lot of history that extends beyond the reaches of stereotypical German things.
Awesome. And then for my final question, do you have a story or a memory that we didn't get to talk about here that you would like to tell us about?
Yeah, so as part of, my friends are going to kill me for talking about this. It's fine.
Okay.
So as a part of our program, I have 49 built-in friends who I got to live with for a month.
Yeah.
And back in February, we had mid-year seminar in Hamburg for a week with those same people. And some of my best friends and I, one night, were like, hey, we all need haircuts. Let's just do it ourselves. So.
Okay. Preparing myself.
So we were like, okay, let's do it. So we did it, and I was given the scissors for my friend. And I was like, okay, I'll do your hair quick. It'll be good, I promise. And she had really thick curly hair. And I was like, I can't mess this up. It's really hard to mess up cutting curly hair.
Yeah.
So I started cutting, and then my other friend comes behind me, and he was like, are you going to fix that chunk right there? And I was like, what chunk? And I looked at it, and it was really wonky, I realized. So I had to cut it. I had to cut her hair so much shorter than she wanted because it was really bad at it. But at least I know that I'm not going into the cosmetology field.
Yeah, you got that. And then maybe some advice for some exchange students coming in, maybe get good at cutting your hair, perhaps. or have a host family who can help you find a really great hairstylist.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Don't let your friends do it. Don't let your friends do it.
Oh my gosh. That is also funny. And I lied. I actually have one more question. So what has been your favorite food that you've been able to try over in Germany?
Ooh, good question. I'm a dessert girly, so I really, really like apple strudel. That's really tasty. Yeah. It's not technically German, but they have it here.
Yeah.
but it's schnitzel, which is like the chicken that's like deep fried and you put lemon on it. That's really good too. And then there's a lot of like German candies I really like. So there's a lot of like Haribo snacks and sour strips that are also really, really good.
Yum. All right. Some things to add on to the shopping list and things to try. Abby, where can people find you if they want to keep up with your adventures in your future?
Right. So my Instagram is Abby Warges, Abby_Warges. And then I also have a German spam. It's Abby auf Deutsch. So if you want to follow me there too, go for it.
Awesome. Well, Abby, thank you so much for your time and for talking with me today and sharing all of your wonderful stories. I think people are going to enjoy them just as much as I did. And it's been great getting to know you and reminiscing on your experience.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. And until next time, this has been Life Exchange Stories of Understanding. I've been your host, Kelsey Ross. We'll see you later. Bye. Listen to Life Exchange Stories of Understanding now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.